Jnana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipana Sadharma Samstapako Lokanamittakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Saranyakaro Radha Krishna Pada Ravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyego Shri Jiva Gopalago. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the six Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, Shri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, Shri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they're honored all over the three worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Kṛṣṇa. So, we're going to go on to chapter 4 of the Nectar of Devotion, entitled Devotional Service Surpasses All Liberation. And this is the summary study by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This is his summary study of Rupa Goswami's Bhakti-rasa Sindhu. This is the science of devotion. So, devotional service surpasses all liberation. How much a devotee is seriously attached to devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be understood from the statement of Maharaj Prithu, which is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto. He prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead thusly: My dear Lord, if after taking liberation I have no chance of hearing the glories of your Lordship, glories chanted by pure devotees from the core of their hearts in praise of your lotus feet, and if I have no chance for this honey of transcendental bliss, then I shall never ask for liberation or the so-called spiritual emancipation. I shall simply always pray unto your Lordship that you may give me millions of tongues and millions of ears so that I can constantly chant and hear of your transcendental glories. Impersonalists desire to merge into the existence of the Supreme, but without keeping their individuality, they have no chance of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Because they have no idea of the transcendental form of the Supreme Lord, there's no chance of their chanting and hearing of his transcendental activities. In other words, unless one is already beyond liberation, one cannot relish the transcendental glories of the Lord, nor can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord. A similar statement is found in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto. Sukadeva Goswami addresses Parikshit Maharaj there and says, The great soul, King Bharat, was so much attached to the service of the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa that he very easily gave up his lordship over the earthly planet and his affection for his children, society, friends, royal opulence, and beautiful wife. He was so very lucky that the goddess of fortune was pleased to offer him all kinds of material concessions. But he never accepted any of these material opulences. Sukadeva Goswami eulogizes this behavior of King Bharat very highly. He says, any person whose heart is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusūdana, not to speak of material opulences, does not care even for that liberation which is aspired by many great sages. I'm going to reread that. It was a little bit of an awkward reading there. Reread that sentence. Any person whose heart is attracted by the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhusudana, not to speak of material opulences, does not care even for that liberation which is aspired to by many great sages. In the Bhagavatam, 6th canto, there is a similar statement by Vritrashura, who addresses the Lord as follows. My dear Lord, by leaving your transcendental service, I may be promoted to the planet called Dhruvaloka, the pole star, or I may gain lordship over all the planetary systems of the universe. But I do not aspire to this, nor do I wish the mystic perfections of yoga practice, nor do I aspire to spiritual emancipation. All I wish for, my Lord, is your association and transcendental service eternally. The statement is confirmed by Lord Shiva in the Bhagavatam 6th canto, wherein Lord Shiva addresses Sati thus. My dear Sati, persons who are devoted to Narayan, Kṛṣṇa, are not afraid of anything. If they're elevated to the higher planetary systems, or if they get liberation from material contamination, or if they're pushed down to the hellish condition of life, or in fact in any situation whatever, they're not afraid of anything, simply because they've taken shelter of the lotus feet of Narayan. For them, any position in the material world is as good as another. A similar statement by Indra, the king of heaven, in Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto. There, Indra addresses his mother in this manner. My dear mother, Aditi, persons who have given up all kinds of desire and are simply engaged in devotional service to the Lord know what is actually their self-interest. Such persons are actually serving their self-interest and are considered first-class experts in the matter of advancing to the perfectional stage of life. In the 7th canto of Bhagavatam, 6th chapter, Maharaj Prahlad says, My dear friends who are born in atheistic families, if you can please the Supreme Personality Godhead Kṛṣṇa, then there's nothing more rare in this world. In other words, if the Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa is pleased with you, then any desire that you may have within the core of your heart can be fulfilled without any doubt. As such, what is the use of elevating yourself by the results of fruitive activities, which are automatically achieved in all events by the modes of material nature? And what's the use for you of spiritual emancipation or liberation from material bondage? If you're always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord, and always relishing the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord, there's no necessity for any of these. By this statement of Prahlad Maharaj, it's clearly understood. The one who takes pleasure in chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord has already surpassed all kinds of material benedictions, including the results of pious fruitive activities, sacrifices, and even liberation from material bondage. Similarly, in the same 7th canto, when the demigods are offering prayers to Lord Nrsimha, Indra, the king of heaven, says, O Supreme One, these demons talk of our share of participation in the performances of ritualistic sacrifices. But simply by your appearance as Lord Nrsimha Dev, you have saved us from terrible fears. Actually, our shares in the sacrificial performances are due to you only, because you are the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices. You are the supersoul of every living entity, and therefore you're the actual owner of everything. Long were our hearts always filled with fear of this demon, Hiranyakashipu. But you're so kind toward us that by killing him, you've removed that fear from within our hearts, and you've given us the chance to place your lordship within our hearts again. For persons who are engaged in the transcendental loving service of your Lordship, all the opulences which were taken away from us by the demons are counted as nothing. Devotees do not care even for liberation, not to speak of these material opulences. Actually, we're not enjoyers of the fruits of sacrifice. Our only duty is to always be engaged in your service. You're the enjoyer of everything. The purport of the statement by Indra is that, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, no living entities are meant for enjoying the material opulences. They're simply meant for offering everything to the Supreme Proprietor, the Personality of Godhead. By doing so, they automatically enjoy the benefit. The example can be cited again of the different parts of the body collecting foodstuffs and cooking them, so that ultimately a meal may be offered to the stomach. After it's gone to the stomach, all the parts of the body equally enjoy the benefit of the meal. So, similarly, everyone's duty is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, and then automatically everyone will become satisfied. A similar verse is found in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Gajendra says there, "My dear Lord, I have no experience in the transcendental bliss derived from your devotional service. So therefore I have asked from you some favor. But I know that persons who are pure devotees have, by serving the lotus feet of great souls, become freed from all material desires, are always merged in the ocean of transcendental bliss, and as such are always satisfied simply by glorifying your auspicious characteristics. For them there's nothing else to aspire to or pray for." And in the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, the Lord of Vaikuntha replies to Durvasa Muni thusly, "My pure devotees are always satisfied by being engaged in devotional service, and therefore they do not aspire even after the 5 liberated stages, which are to be one with me, to achieve residence on my planet, to have my opulences, to possess bodily features similar to mine, to gain personal association with me. So when they're not interested even in these liberated positions, you can know how little they care for material opulences or material liberation." There's a similar prayer by the Nagapatni, wives of the Kaliya serpent, in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. The Nagapatni say there, "Dear Lord, the dust of your lotus feet is very powerful. Any person who is fortunate enough to achieve this dust does not care for heavenly planets, lordship over all the planetary systems, mystic perfections of yoga, or even liberation from material existence. In other words, anyone who adores the dust of your lotus feet does not care a fig for all other perfectional stages." There's a similar statement in the 10th canto when the Shrutis, the Vedas personified, prayed to the Lord as follows. "My dear Lord, it's very difficult to understand spiritual knowledge. Your appearance here, just as you are, is to explain to us this most difficult subject of knowledge of the Spirit. As such, your devotees who have left their domestic comforts to associate with the liberated acharyas are now fully merged in the devotional service of your Lordship, and thus they do not care for any so-called liberation." In explaining this verse, it should be noted that spiritual knowledge means understanding the self and the supersoul, or the superself. The individual soul and the supersoul are qualitatively one, and therefore both of them are known as Brahman, or spirit. But knowledge of Brahman is very difficult to understand. There are so many philosophers engaged in the matter of understanding the soul, but they are unable to make any tangible advancement. It is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that out of many millions of persons, only one may try to understand what is spiritual knowledge. And out of many such persons who are trying to understand, only one or a few may know what is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this verse says that spiritual knowledge is very difficult to achieve. And so, in order to make it more easily attainable, the Supreme Lord himself comes in his original form as Sri Kṛṣṇa and gives his instruction directly to an associate like Arjuna, just so that the people in general may take advantage of spiritual knowledge. This verse also explains that liberation means having completely given up all material comforts of life. Those who are impersonalists are satisfied by simply being liberated from material circumstances. But those who are devotees can automatically give up material life and also enjoy the transcendental bliss of hearing and chanting the wonderful activities of Lord Kṛṣṇa. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kṛṣṇa says to Uddhava as follows: My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service, they have no other desire. Even if they're offered the 4 kinds of spiritual opulences, they will refuse to accept them. And there is an asterisk after that, so there's a footnote about the 4 spiritual opulences. And I couldn't find it. It's not there. And now we've also lost our place. But we'll find it. We'll find it. It'll just take a second or two here. Okay, so it was a little bit of a wild goose chase trying to find that footnote. So we'll just skip over it. In the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kṛṣṇa says to Uddhava as follows: My dear Uddhava, the devotees who have completely taken shelter of my service are so steadfast in devotional service that they have no other desire, even if they're offered the 4 kinds of spiritual opulences. They will refuse to accept them. So what to speak of their desiring anything within the material world? Similarly, Lord Kṛṣṇa says in another passage of the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, My dear Uddhava, a person whose consciousness is completely absorbed in my thought and activities does not aspire even to occupy the post of Brahma, or the post of Indra, or the post of lordship over the planets, or the 8 kinds of mystic perfection, or even liberation itself. In the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva says to Devi, My dear Devi, this great Brahmin sage Markandeya has attained unflinching faith and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, he does not aspire after any benedictions, including liberation from the material world. Similarly, there's a statement in Padma Purana describing ritualistic function during the month of Kartik, October-November. During this month in Vrindavan, it is the regulative principle to pray daily to Lord Kṛṣṇa in his Damodar form. The Damodar form refers to Kṛṣṇa in his childhood, when he was tied up with rope by Mother Yasoda. Dam means rope, and Udara means abdomen. So Mother Yasoda, being very disturbed by naughty Kṛṣṇa, bound him round the abdomen with a rope, and thus Kṛṣṇa is named Damodar. During the month of Kartik, Damodar is prayed to as follows: My dear Lord, you're the Lord of all, the giver of all benedictions. There are many demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva who sometimes offer benedictions to their respective devotees. For example, Ravana was blessed with many benedictions by Lord Shiva. Hiranyakashipu was blessed by Lord Brahma. But even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma depend upon the benedictions of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Therefore, Kṛṣṇa is addressed as the Lord of all benefactors. As such, Lord Kṛṣṇa can offer his devotees anything they want, but still the devotee's prayer continues. I do not ask you for liberation or any material facility up to the point of liberation. What I want as your favor is that I always think of your form as I see you now as Damodar. You're so beautiful and attractive. My mind does not want anything else besides this wonderful form. In the same prayer, there's another passage in which it is said, My dear Lord Damodar, once you were playing as a naughty boy in the house of Nanda Maharaj. You broke the box containing yogurt. Because of that, Mother Yasoda considered you an offender and tied you with a rope to the household grinding mortar. At that time you delivered 2 sons of Kuvera, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, who were staying there as 2 Arjuna trees in the yard of Nanda Maharaj. My only request is that by your merciful pastimes, you may similarly deliver me. The story behind this verse is that the 2 sons of Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods, were puffed up on account of the opulence of their father. So once on a heavenly planet, they were enjoying themselves in a lake with some naked damsels of heaven. At that time, the great Saint Narada Muni was passing on the road and was sorry to see the behavior of the sons of Kuvera. Seeing Narada passing by, the damsels of heaven covered their bodies with cloth, but the 2 sons, being drunkards, did not have the decency. Narada became angry with their behavior and cursed them thusly, You have no sense, so it is better you become trees instead of the sons of Kuvera. Upon hearing this, the boys came to their senses and begged Narada pardon for their offenses. And Narada then said, Yes, you shall become trees, Arjuna trees, and you will stand at the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. But Kṛṣṇa himself will appear in time as the foster son of Nanda, and he will deliver you. In other words, the curse of Narada was a benediction to the sons of Kuvera, because indirectly it was foretold they would be able to receive the favor of Lord Kṛṣṇa. After that, Kuvera's 2 sons stood as 2 big, tall Arjuna trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj until Lord Damodar, in order to fulfill the desire of Narada, dragged the milling pestle to which he was tied and struck the 2 trees, violently causing them to fall down. From out of these fallen trees came Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, who by then had become great devotees of the Lord. There is a passage in the Hayashirsha Purana which states, My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, I do not want any resultant benediction from my religious life, nor do I want any economic development, nor do I want to enjoy sense gratification, nor liberation. I simply pray to be an eternal servant at your lotus feet. Kindly oblige me and give me this benediction. In the same Hayashirsha Purana, after Nrsingadev wanted to give benedictions to Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad did not accept any material benediction and simply asked the favor of the Lord to remain his eternal devotee. In this connection, Prahlad Maharaj cited the example of Hanuman, the eternal servitor of Lord Ramachandra, who also set an example by never asking any material favor from the Lord. He always remained engaged in his service. That's the ideal character of Hanuman, for which he's still worshipped by all devotees. Prahlad Maharaj also offered his respectful obeisances unto Hanuman. And there's a well-known verse spoken by Hanuman in which he says, My dear Lord, if you like, you can give me salvation from this material existence, or the privilege of merging into your existence, but I do not wish any of these things. I do not want anything which diminishes my relationship with you as master and servant, even after liberation. In a similar passage in the Narada Pancharatra, it's stated, "My dear Lord, I do not wish any perfectional stage by performing ritualistic religious ceremonies, or by economic development, or by sense gratification, or liberation. I simply pray that you grant me the favor of keeping me under your lotus feet. I do not wish any kind of liberation such as Salokya, to reside on your planet, Sarupya, to have the same bodily features as you. I simply pray for your favor that I may be always engaged in your loving service." Similarly, in the 6th canto, 14th chapter, the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit inquires from Sukadeva Goswami, "My dear Brahman, I understand that the demon Vritrashura was a great sinful person, and his mentality was completely absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. How did he develop to such a perfectional stage of devotional service to Narayan? I've heard that even great persons who have undergone severe austerities and who are liberated with full knowledge must strive to become devotees of the Lord. It's understood that such persons are very rare and almost never to be seen, so I'm astonished that Vritrashura has become such a devotee." In the above verse, the most important thing to be noted is that there may be many liberated persons who have merged into the existence of impersonal Brahman, but a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan is very, very rare. Even out of millions of liberated persons, only one is fortunate enough to become a devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti is praying to Lord Kṛṣṇa at the time of his departure. "My dear Kṛṣṇa, you are so great that you are inconceivable even to great stalwart scholars and Paramahamsas, fully liberated souls. So, if such great sages, who are transcendental to all the reactions of material existence, are unable to know you, then, as far as we are concerned, belonging to the less intelligent woman class, how is it possible for us to know your glories? How can we understand you?" In this verse, the particular thing to be noted is that the personality of Godhead is not understood by great liberated persons, but only by devotees, such as Queen Kunti in her humbleness. Although she was a woman considered less intelligent than a man, still she realized the glories of Kṛṣṇa. That is the purport of this verse. Another passage which is very important is in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1st canto, and is called the Atmarama verse. In this Atmarama verse, it is stated that even those who are completely liberated from material contamination are attracted by the transcendental qualities of Lord Kṛṣṇa. The purport of this verse is that a liberated soul has absolutely no desire at all for material enjoyment. He's wholly freed from all kinds of material desires. Yet still, he is irresistibly attracted by the desire to hear and understand the pastimes of the Lord. We may therefore conclude that the glories and pastimes of the Lord are not material. Otherwise, how could the liberated persons known as Atmaramas be attracted by such pastimes? That's the important point in this verse. From the above statement, it's found that a devotee is not after any of the stages of liberation. There are 5 stages of liberation already explained as being: 1, to become one with the Lord; 2, to live on the same planet as the Lord; 3, to obtain the same bodily features as the Lord; and 4, to have the same opulences as the Lord; and 5, constant association with the Lord. Out of these 5 liberated stages, the one which is known as Sayuja, to merge into the existence of the Lord, is the last to be accepted by a devotee. The other 4 liberations, although not desired by devotees, still are not against devotional ideals. Some of the liberated persons who have achieved these 4 stages of liberation may also develop affection for Kṛṣṇa and be promoted to Goloka Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. In other words, those who are already promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and who possess the 4 kinds of liberation may also sometimes develop affection for Kṛṣṇa and become promoted to Kṛṣṇaloka. So those who are in the 4 liberated states may still be going through different stages of existence. In the beginning, they may want the opulences of Kṛṣṇa, but at the mature stage, the dormant love for Kṛṣṇa exhibited in Vrindavan becomes prominent in their hearts. As such, the pure devotees never accept the liberation of Sayuja to become one with the Supreme, though sometimes they may accept as favorable the other 4 liberated states. Out of the many kinds of devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the one who is attracted by the original form of the Lord, Kṛṣṇa in Vrindavan, is considered to be the foremost first-class devotee. Such a devotee is never attracted by the opulences of Vaikuntha nor even of Dwarka, the royal city where Kṛṣṇa ruled. The conclusion of Srila Rupa Goswami is that the devotees who are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord in Gokula or Vrindavan are the topmost devotees. A devotee who is attached to a particular form of the Lord does not wish to change his devotion to other forms. For example, Hanuman, the devotee of Lord Ramachandra, knew that there is no difference between Lord Ramachandra and Lord Narayan, and yet he still wanted to render service only unto Lord Ramachandra. That is due to the specific attraction of a particular devotee. There are many, many forms of the Lord, but Kṛṣṇa is still the original form. Though all of the devotees of the different forms of the Lord are in the same category, still it is said that those who are devotees of Lord Kṛṣṇa are the topmost in the list of all devotees.